So Tuesday night, I think so.
Commissioners Gershenson? Okay, we'll come back. Gingell? Hoffman? Jackson? Kokendorfer?
Here.
Kowal? Kuhn?
Here.
Long?
Here.
Lubes?
Here.
Markham?
Here.
McGilvray?
Here.
Middleton? Miller?
Here.
Nelson? Here. No, Powell stepped out for a minute. Quarles? Quarles is not looking to, okay. Spiz?
I'm here.
Good. Todd?
Here.
Weipert?
Here.
Woodward? Zach?
Christensen's here.
Gershenson? Okay, you have a
Wait,
quorum.
and-
Oh, Quarles? Here. Powell? Here. All right. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd like to invite the Honorable Commissioner Nancy Quarles to the front to deliver today's invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I would like to take a moment of silence for Congressman John Conyers. I think most of us, or all of us, know him, so if we could do that, as he is a champion for the state of Michigan. Thank you. And my words are, with him in mind, champions aren't made out easy. Champions are made from something they have deep inside them, a desire, a dream, a vision. They have to have last-minute stamina. They have to be a little faster. They have to have the sheen and the will to upstand and hold to anything that they approach. And in this light, the will must be stronger than the self-preservation. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the October 23rd, 2019 meeting, moved by Commissioner Lube, seconded by Commissioner Long. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. Next up, we have approval of the agenda. I think there are a couple of questions. We're gonna if I can get a motion to move the agenda to pull off item A under the Legislative Affairs and Operations Committee to place on the general agenda, on the regular agenda, and item D, dealing with the Articles of Incorporation of Oakland County, and place it on the regular agenda. And then I'm going to be adding a communication from the DIA after we do the proclamations on the agenda. So if we get a motion to that effect.
I would move that, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner McGilvray moves, seconded by Commissioner Hoffman. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The agenda is approved. That brings us to communications. So first, Madam Clerk, do you have any communications for us?
I do. This morning, I have two. The first is dated October 4th, regarding the appointment of Jay Quadrosi to Great Lakes Water Authority Board of Directors. Please take notice, actually it's addressed to me, but please take notice that pursuant to Article 7, Section B of the Great Lakes Water Authority, GLEWA, Articles of Incorporation adopted by the Oakland County Board of Commissioners on October 8th, 2014, I hereby appoint Ms. Jay Quadrosi of Farmington Hills, Michigan, to be Oakland County's representative on the Great Lakes Water Authority Board of Directors. Ms. Quadrosi's term of office shall commence upon her filing of the 1963 Michigan Constitution's Article 11, Section 1 oath of office with the Oakland County Clerk, and shall continue at the appointing authority's pleasure for a term of 2 years from the commencement date. Sincerely, David Coulter, Oakland County Executive. And the second communication is in regard to appointments as well from the County Executive, Dave Coulter, regarding his deputies and including their ranking order, and I will, instead of reading the whole thing, I'll read them in that way. So Hillary Chambers, Chief Deputy County Executive, Sean L. Carlson, Deputy County Executive 2, April M. Lynch, Deputy County Executive 1, Rudy Hobbs, Deputy County Executive 1. These appointments and designations are effective on this date and continue at the pleasure of the County Executive. Sincerely, David Coulter, Oakland County Executive. That's all I have this morning.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve those communications? Moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The communications are received. Next up, I'd like to invite Commissioner Zach with a special proclamation. Now you can move the screen down so we can see you.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to tell a little bit about what we're doing, and then I'm going to invite my whole group of people that are here. So many of us know that we had a measles scare in Oakland County, and it was a public health emergency that we did not want to have this spread further in our county, and our county health department really stepped up to the plate, and they were extraordinary. And I, was in constant communication with them and said, I really want to recognize you and your extraordinary efforts. And they said to me, well, we couldn't do this alone. We want to be recognized with our community partners, which is Hatzalah. And Hatzalah is an emergency response organization that was founded in Israel. And they established this organization in Oak Park in Southfield 2 years ago. And it was really started as another culturally sensitive emergency responder to the Orthodox Jewish community. And they organized themselves. They carry pagers, they're on call, people rush to it, and they work in partnership with the Southfield and the Oak Park fire departments or public safety departments. I had the opportunity to finally meet Dr. McGraw, and Dr. McGraw is the doctor who oversees the Oakland County Emergency Medical Society and Group, and he was asked by Hatzalah would he help them get established, and he became their medical director. So I'd like to recognize and invite everybody to come up here who's in the audience. We got it takes a village, literally, to eradicate measles. So we have Christina Ottenweiss from our health department. Hannah Cassis, come on up here as I call your name. Jennifer Kirby, Lisa McKay Chasson, Sarah Stoddard, Nina Timmerman, Kate Guzman, our Chief of Immunizations, Christy Clement, Leanne Stafford, our Deputy Director of Health, Kathy Forsley, our Director. And then I believe that this is our Oakland County staff. Then from Hatzalah, I'm not done. So from Hatzalah, we have Dr. Aaron Cooper, who is an emergency room physician at Beaumont Troy. Come on up. Shane Beese is from our health department. We have Dr. Janet Snyder, who is a pediatrician in our area and was greatly involved. We've heard from her before speaking about vaccinations. She was here a couple years ago. Dr. Steve McGraw. We have Phyllis Meir, a nurse practitioner that works in the office of Dr. Snyder and in the community, Naki Sola, who is our feet on the street for Hatzalah, Yehuda Kranzer from Hatzalah, and we also have Jerry Eisen, come on up, who represent Young Israel of Oak Park. And part of the initiative, and I believe it was Leanne Stafford's idea, is where can we move our vaccinations where that's culturally sensitive? So Young Israel opened their doors and they offered vaccination clinics on Sundays and evenings. I had a shot there at Young Israel on a Sunday. I learned that I didn't have enough immunity even though I was vaccinated in 2006. So I'm not going to read the resolution because look at this community partnership. It was extraordinary. They eradicated measles. It was so cutting edge that places across the country have been calling them, "What have you done?" And it's really the teamwork. And I just keep hearing beautiful stories. I heard the beautiful story of Hatzalah taking Dr. McGraw to the Hatzalah conference in Israel. And he got to see Israel where they lauded him and that cultural exchange. I heard stories of community members were calling me saying this was amazing, and Orthodox members coming and feeding our staff going into homes, doing vaccinations, swabbing cheeks. It was extraordinary. So I just want to tell you a tremendous success in our community and open it to anybody that wants to speak.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I can do this without emotion. This is literally the highlight of many of our careers. I don't think I'll ever forget the measles outbreak and how a community can come together and make such a difference. So I speak from my heart. This is just extraordinary, and they will be friends for life. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak and tell us some beautiful stories? Come on.
Unexpected to speak, but I just want to say that the Oakland County Health Department is beyond words. It's stellar, and it wasn't really just the measles outbreak. I've been in contact with the health department over various outbreaks and things for years, and they are just the most amazing, caring, professional, cutting edge, daring. I don't know. You know, they're amazing people, and this is an amazing organization or department that we have in Oakland County, and we should all be just so grateful and so proud of them. So we just really thank you all. And Dr. McGraw here, he's an angel. He looks human, but he's not.
So I do have the proclamations, which I'm going to spare everybody reading. One for Hatzalah, and who wants to claim that? One for the health department. Okay, one for Israel, and I do have some paper certificates here if anybody wants a copy. We've got some, our staff was very kind if you want to take this. And once again, thank you everybody for coming out, and now it's picture time.
Thank you again to all that you do, a demonstration of incredible partnership, keeping our community safe. Thank you, Commissioner Zach, for helping remind us and bring all this to attention. Next up, Commissioner Hoffman and Commissioner Middleton, a proclamation for Thomas Renish.
I'd like to call Deputy Renish up, please, and his child bride, Pam. And also I'd like Suzanne Holler, Director of the Friend of the Court. She's been there 16 years. I'd like to have her come up too. And Pete Dever, who's the Chief Assistant for Legal Services for Friend of the Court, and he's been there a short 15 years. Nice to see you, Thomas. We have a proclamation we would like to present to you for your years of service to Oakland County. And Commissioner Middleton, who is the commissioner where you live, will read the first part of it, and then I'll read the second part.
Whereas we all deeply are indebted to the honorable individual who serves in law enforcement, dedicating their lives and careers to serving and protecting the community of the people who live there. And whereas Deputy Tom Ramos, Jr. of Oakland County Sheriff's Department is one such individual. Hired as a sheriff deputy in 1987, Deputy Ramos has served at the department in honor and integrity for 32 years. And
Whereas Deputy Renish graduated from Sterling Heights High School in 1976 and served in the United States Marine Corps from 1977 to 1980. After his deployment to Panama, he was honorably discharged at the rank of United States Marine Lance Corporal. Prior to becoming an Oakland County Sheriff's Deputy, he served the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department from 83 to 86, working in the county jail and doing road patrol in Compton, California. And whereas during his tenure with the Oakland County Sheriff Department, Detective Renish Jr. has proven himself as an exceptional, complex patrolman and has honorably served the court of Oakland County. Whereas on this special occasion, we join the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, as well as the family, friends, and colleagues of Deputy Renish to congratulate him in his retirement and to thank him for his distinguished service during his 32 years on duty. Now therefore, David T. Woodward, Chairman of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, together with Commissioner Hoffman and Tom Middleton, and the entire Oakland County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim special commendation to Deputy Thomas Renish Jr. for his many years of exemplary service. We wish him all the best in his retirement.
Congratulations. All right, next we have the added presentation. So I'd like to invite Salvador to the front here. If I can get Pam, yeah, make sure the monitor is up. Maybe I'll introduce Gene first, and then you can introduce Gene Gargaro, the president of the DIA, again here, to give some more information about what the DIA is doing and plans for the future, and answer questions that commissioners might have. Gene, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Vice Chairman, and members of the Commission. Thank you very much for your time today. We're here to talk to you about our rationale and intentions to renew our regional millage. And before I ask Salvador and David Flynn to do that, Just want to give you a little flashback. It was 9 years ago that I appeared before this commission, and at that time the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit stopped funding our cultural institutions. And we at the DIA looked to see what the Detroit Zoo had done in the way of a millage, and met with the leadership at the zoo, and they were kind enough to share their playbook with us. We came here and met with the leadership in Oakland County, a number of your commission members, and framed what became a historic regional millage for the Detroit Institute of Arts. And we've worked very, very hard for the last 8 years to develop your trust and a valuable working relationship. Flashback now, just a month ago, Brian Barnett, who is your mayor in Rochester Hills, and coincidentally, the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. They brought 60 mayors from around the country to Detroit. This group could go anywhere in the United States, but they voted to come to Detroit to see what's happening in the city, in the region, and they came to the Detroit Institute of Arts. Salvador and David and I hosted them, and we met mayors from Florida and Texas, California, and the common thread was we never knew there was an institution such as the Detroit Institute of Arts in Detroit. And it brought home to all of us the realization that something we've not gotten accustomed to, but we work at, volunteer at, weekly, daily. Sometimes we take things for granted. But what we have in the DIA is a special part of the city's revitalization, the state's revitalization, and we owe much of that to certainly the financial support that we've garnered from this historic regional millage. And while the dollars are very important, as you'll hear from David and Salvador, the relationships that will surpass and exceed the dollars are something we place a very high value on. So I'd like to ask David Flynn to follow me and give you some framework for our request for renewal of the millage, and then ask Salvador to give you an update on what's actually happening at the DIA, and then all of us will be available for questions. Dave?
Thank you, Gene. Obviously, we come out to the County Commission and the Art Authorities 3 to 4 times a year. We present our program plan, we present our half-year report, we present our annual review, and we tell you in this body everything that we're doing at the museum, and we elicit feedback to improve what our programming is, our communication to residents in the counties, and I think we just wanted to do a highlight of what we've done in the past 8 years. It's always important to evaluate what's been accomplished, and 8 years is a long time, but I don't think anybody at the beginning of this millage could have thought this would have been this successful in terms of meeting and exceeding our commitments in our service agreements to Oakland County residents, whether it be for free admission, whether it be for school students, for seniors, or for our community partnerships that we have out in the community. And so with that, we just have a high-level review today to show what we've done together over the past 8 years in Oakland County. Over 704,000 people have been able to visit the DIA for free general admission since the inception of the millage. That's a huge, thank you. We didn't pay her, but we will later. That's a huge amount of people that are able to come to the museum for full access. Whether you have a lot of money or you have no money, you can bring your family down to the museum to see one of the top 5 museums in the countries, where there's Van Goghs, Matisse's, Rivera's, things that you'll find only in world-class museums on the East and West Coast and throughout Europe. The program we know that is most impactful and relevant to any demographic throughout the 3 counties, including Oakland, is for us to provide curriculum-based K through 12 field trips. And not only do we do that and we work with the different school districts on that curriculum, we provide 100% of that bus transportation. And this is public schools, private schools, parochial, charter, etc. And we work in tandem with the school districts to create things that are relevant to their core curriculum. This isn't just art classes. This is history, this is math, this is science, this is writing and English. And we know that this really is something that people want their kids and grandkids to experience because they don't feel it exists in the classroom anymore. And so we almost play a substitute role in that. So we want to show you a couple quick videos because we know the one thing we can do better is communicate with larger audiences. And so we want to just show you what our school program looks like. And I'm the least person to press play here. Oh, there you go.
We have 62,000 students from Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties that visit the museum on free field trips every year. I think of art as the vehicle that we use to really teach all the other subjects. It's how we learn about science, how we learn about social studies, math, language arts.
Art is really the windows to the world. It takes you back in history. And so you get to see how people lived back then, the artifacts that are here.
It's not just the object, but it's the stories of the artists and how they created the object.
Everyone has a different way of expressing art, so seeing stuff that doesn't come from Detroit, it's something new and refreshing.
I think that museums offer kids an opportunity to experience cultures that they may never get to experience.
It's kind of magical. I think they can appreciate the art in a different way than if they see the artwork on a screen or on a computer.
They take with them so many questions and connections to what we learn in school and to the rest of the world.
The DIA is a leader in education in this region. What it offers is a world-class, and I truly mean a world-class institution, and all the resources that we have here.
I hear from so many teachers that they would never be able to manage a trip to the DIA because of the cost of busing for field trips, but we do provide busing to schools within the Tri-County area.
Since 2013, the DIA has provided $1.4 million worth of free bus transportation to support student field trips to the museum. The only reason that we can make any of this happen is because of the community's support that this institution has. It's what makes all this possible.
Come here, join us.
If you go, you're gonna love it.
And so by that video, you know, I mean, we can show all the...
We have 62,000 students from Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties that visit the museum on free field trips every year.
Megan, can you get me back to the PowerPoint? But we talk about numbers all the time. These are real life stories that impact people's lives. That impact people's lives on a regular basis. And we also provide professional development for teachers where they can go back into their classrooms and provide those critical thinking skills. And that goes towards their recertification in the state of Michigan. See, I can multitask with 3 things going on here. How do I do? We were on such a roll, too. And so you can see how many teachers we have each year that come down to the museum. And the third pillar of our agreement are senior group trips. We've had over 550 Oakland County groups that have brought seniors down to the museum for different activities, for tours, for lectures, for film, for art making, for live performances. And so, since we're already there, we'll go to the next video, which is seniors. And don't go far away. All right, this should be easier than this.
I can remember coming down here as a child with Mom and Dad and my brothers, and I remember the sarcophagus that they had there and the artwork in the Great Hall, and coming back and seeing it, and it's like, wow, it's still there. I remember all those things.
When you come here, you're exploring
can remember coming down here as a child with mom and dad and my brothers, and I remember the sarcophagus that they had there and the artwork in the Great Hall, and coming back and seeing it, and it's like, wow, it's still there. I remember all those things.
When you come here, you're exploring the world.
When you can be in Detroit and see a Van Gogh or Diego Rivera, these are such treasures. It's right here and it's accessible.
I think that seniors have an opportunity when they come here to really have an enriching experience.
They have access to everything here. Great food, great art, great film, to Friday Night Live.
It offers history, culture, socialization, a place where people can come and see all of this that has everything all in one spot.
This is our 3rd or 4th year that we've brought our group here, and everybody loves it. We have actually told them they had to come and get the cookies, coffee, and tea.
At a fundamental level, art is important because it fosters community.
And the DIA and the community really have a relationship together that I think is important.
There's always something different going on here.
You always learn something new. It's never too late to be inspired. This is your museum, so come, it's yours. The DIA is a world treasure. It's just incredible.
And so the last thing that we have are community partnerships, our Inside Out program, which are reproductions that we have of things in the museum, things that we have out in the museum. And our public art projects, which are really popular. We have one in Lake Orion that's being conducted now. We just had a ribbon cutting in Clawson that tells the story and the history. We were in Clarkston last year. We work with these local nonprofit organizations to leave something in their community that is long-lasting. This isn't one-off. This is something that your kids and your grandkids should be able to see and understand. And so these are the things that we've been working on at the DIA for the past 8 years. And we've listened to your feedback and we've become much better. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. And I'll close by saying this, is that I've sat on this side of the podium and I've sat on your side of the podium and I've sat up there where the chairman is. And obviously, these votes aren't easy and people have to go back to their districts and explain to their constituents every 2 years why they've earned the right to be reelected. And I'll say this, is regardless of how you vote on a millage renewal moving forward and whatever your process is, we hope that we've been as transparent, as engaging and inclusive as we possibly can so that you feel comfortable and informed to make whatever decision you feel is appropriate. And so I'll pass this along to Salvador.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for the presentation. I came to the DIA in 2008, and I work as a curator, and when the millage passed in 2012, I was the head of the European department, which has one of the greatest collections in the United States. At the time when the millage passed, management didn't know 2 things that are very important today. One is that the city of Detroit was going to be in bankruptcy, and that after that bankruptcy, the museum would come out independent from the city. Today, we own the collection, we own the building, we own the grounds, and we own the destiny of the DIA. The second thing that, yep.
That's so important.
The second thing that management didn't know at the time in 2012 was that this millage was going to transform the organization. It was going to change the culture of the DIA. I said this many times in the past, but this millage, apart from the financial benefits that we have received that have been so important, has really changed the museum. In the past, we were an organization that generally looked inwards. Today, we are an organization that looks outward. We are going beyond the walls of the museum to serve the communities, to provide services, to provide arts education where places this art education is not given. We have become a tool for the community. We have changed people's life, and we plan to do and continue working in this way. Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb County have made the DIA a leader in education in the country. Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb County have made the DIA part of the comeback of Southwest Michigan. And Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb County have made the DIA a place where people come and visit exhibitions and see programs and the DIA provide these kinds of experiences that people cannot find in books, on TV, or in the internet. We want to continue being this institution. We are in a place we never dreamed we could be. So we would like the voters to decide whether they want the DIA to continue to be where we are today. So I really thank all of you for your attention, for having us 3 or 4 times a year in front of you so we can report on our activities. We have great programs next year. We're going to continue working so hard. Our Van Gogh exhibition will be the best exhibition in the United States next year. I can guarantee you that. And we have a great exhibition on car design that is an exhibition to make us all feel proud of our history and the fact that Detroit put the world on wheels. So we're going to host that in the museum. We are here open for questions in the next weeks. Any concerns or ideas or feedback you can give us, we would like to discuss them with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Salvador and the DIA. At this time, if there are any questions that the board has about any things on the horizon, the ballot proposal, obviously some issues that we're dealing with, we'll start with Commissioner Gitchell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I would just say I appreciate the engagement from the DIA and all the work that you've done. And earlier this morning, the representatives from the DIA spoke to our caucus, as I'm sure the full board. And so we've committed to think about this issue and to get questions to Commissioner Spiz by the end of the day on Monday so that we can have a formal way to voice any concerns or items of information that we're looking for. So, feel free to hold us accountable to that, and we'll coordinate with the chair so that it can be potentially a collective process. But look forward to getting any answers that people are concerned about and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, gentlemen, thank you very much. DIA is always welcome here. Thank you for not being a stranger and all the work that you all do. Another round of applause for the DIA. All right, moving on the agenda, this will bring us to the public comment portion of the agenda. So I'm going to start with the people who signed up. We ask that you come to the podium at the back there. Keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. We have a little timer up here to address, to help keep you on track. If you exceed your time, I'll ask you to wrap up your comments. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity today to speak. If you didn't sign up, I'm going to go through the folks who did sign up, and then anyone who else wants to speak will be invited to ask, to address the board as well. First up, no stranger to this body, Commissioner Emeritus, our former colleague, Maddie McKinney-Hatchett.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I'm still here. I'd like the following people to come at this time: Bill Maxey, Veronica Taylor Biffle, Yvette Carson Williams, Ahmad Taylor, who is the executive director of the Pontiac Housing Commission, Pastor Kathy Desereau, and Pastor William Parker. This is but a few of the people who have come with me today to support the request that we are making. The request we are making is that you support the resolution that our Commissioner Powell will be presenting to you and taking it through the process. In 2018, Oakland County received communication through to the late L. Brooks Patterson stating that there were some violations in the way that they were using the block grant money and the home funds. We stand before you today asking you to support the right way to use these funds. We have a project coming up in Pontiac. We have commitments of 90% of what it would cost to renovate one of our facilities that will provide homes, housing to about 400 families. So if you include the children, you're talking about anywhere from 800 to 1,000 people. This particular project will bring about renovation at one of our oldest facilities. HUD doesn't provide the kind of money that we need to do this. So we're asking that you seriously consider this. Let's correct the wrong that was done in the past, and let's provide affordable housing for our people in Pontiac. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, I have Mr. Bill Maxey. I don't know if there are additional comments. Mr. Maxey? Did you have additional comments you wanted to make? I mean, you're next on the list. I didn't know if you had additional remarks to make.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you. I echo with the same expressions that Ms. Hatchett has just stated. Among those that need housing, veterans. I am a 30-year veteran commander, retired, of the United States Army. And I speak for the American Legion, the VFW, Korean vets, and anyone else in our organization, or should I say military people in our organization, men and women. Our veterans in this particular case occupies about 20% of Carrot Circle. I'll end this by saying I applaud my commissioner for her quality energies and her strategic intelligence move that she made to ask you, the commissioners, how many commissioners here have relatives that either serve or been in the military? Raise your hand. The only one. Two, thank you. Then you understand and you know that full support should be given to our commissioner. Thank you very much for listening. And should I have the opportunity or I need to come back, you will know that H. Bill Maxey, retired U.S. Commander, USA, was here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Leah McCall, I have next on the list.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm from the Alliance for Housing, the Continuum of Care in Oakland County. I wanted to come here today to thank Commissioner Zach for putting the resolution and for Homeless Awareness Month, which is November 2019. The Alliance and community partners appreciate you bringing this important issue and awareness to Oakland County. We look forward to working with all of you to expand what we can do to address homelessness in our county. We can do better and we can do more together. You also have some sheets at your table that I've passed out for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Jenny Poma.
There we go. Hi. Jenny Poma, representing Lighthouse of Michigan, a nonprofit agency in Pontiac. We work to end homelessness and poverty throughout Oakland County, and I'm here representing our agency, our programs, and the people that we serve. It has been brought to our attention, or is our understanding, that the county's Community and Home Improvement Department is recommending 2 significant changes to the way that the county allocates county-administered federal emergency solutions grant funds. It is also my understanding that those changes are being brought to the commission at large at this meeting today. So I'm here to sort of walk through to help you sort of understand what those changes are and some of the unintended consequences that we feel the changes have. So the preliminary allocations have already been distributed, and Lighthouse has already received our allocations, and which imply that the changes are already being implemented and have resulted in a 60% decrease in funding to 2 of our programs, which are among the only programs in Oakland County that serve homeless women and children, which the face of homelessness is very diverse, for sure, but many of our county's homeless are children. Oakland County Schools estimates 4,000 children a year experience homelessness in Oakland County alone. So 2 of the changes, one change is an arbitrary reduction in the amount that is going to be allowed to be allocated to transitional housing programs. The arbitrary amount is being capped at $20,000, which represents 1/3 of the funding our program alone has historically received through this pool of funds. Now that reduced amount of $20,000 is going to be split between two agencies that fund transitional housing. Our transitional housing program in Oakland County is 100% dedicated to women and children. These are people who are considered homeless, they're in our transitional housing program, and if that program doesn't exist, they would be left to the shelter system alone. It's a little bit longer than your traditional shelter setting. The other program is our shelter. So our shelter serves men, women, and children. Again, the only shelter in Oakland County which accommodates full families. The major change to that program is instead of allocating resources based on the number of services you provide, the number of overnights you provide, the proposal is to fund the number of unique individuals you serve. So with that in mind, a shelter could serve one person one time, and we could serve one person every day for 90 days, providing them with 3 meals and overnights, and we would be allocated the same amount of funds. So I don't think it's the county's intention that the unintended consequence is a disinvestment of two of the only programs in Oakland County that serve full families, women and children experiencing homelessness. So I'm here today to lift that up, to hopefully have that be an issue on your mind, something to consider for this year and also next year as these changes are considered and renewed.
Great.
Thank you so
very
much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing those thoughts and comments to our attention. That's all that was on the list. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak during public comment? This would be the time to come forward. Seeing none, I will close public comment. I'm looking at anything. I think we also had in the House a representative from Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence's office, Rick Blocker, community liaison. I don't see him in the room. Oh, there he is. Okay. But thank you for being here, and always welcome, and we look forward to our continued partnership with the Congresswoman. I will consider public comment closed. And we'll move on to reports of standing committees. The first item of business is the consent agenda. So I need a motion to move the consent agenda. Moved by Commissioner Gingell, seconded by Commissioner Lubes. And the consent agenda minus the 2 items that we moved onto the regular agenda is before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the consent agenda, Commissioners Gingell, Hoffman, Jackson, Kokendorfer?
Yes.
Kowal? Yes. Kuhn?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Lubes?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
McGilvray?
Yes.
Middleton? Yes. Miller?
Yes.
Nelson? Yes. Powell?
Yes.
Quarles? Yes. Spiz?
Yes.
Taub?
Yes.
Wipert?
Yes.
Woodward?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Gershenson? Yes. Did Jackson come back? No? Okay. Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays.
A sufficient number voted in the affirmative. The consent agenda is adopted. Moves us on to the regular agenda. We have no items under economic growth and infrastructure, none under finance, healthy communities. All those were dealt with the consent agenda. Let me invite the chair of the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee. And we will take up the item on the printed agenda and the 2 items on the consent agenda that we moved to the regular agenda. Commissioner Quarles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 items on the agenda today. I will begin with MR 19309. The Board of Commissioners urge Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy to develop and the State House and Senate to pass statewide septic code. I move for acceptance, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Commissioner Quarles to adopt the report from the committee, seconded by Commissioner Miller. All in favor of the report, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The report is adopted. Commissioner Quarles, Commissioner Lubes moves the resolution, seconded by Commissioner Quarles, to adopt the resolution. I believe we have Commissioner Hoffman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to add an amendment, and everybody has it in front of them, and I'm not going to read it. Everything in it pertains to taking out the mandatory septic inspections approximately every 10 years. I'm not opposed to a state code, but I think this is it may be well intended, but I think the consequences will not obtain what you hope they will. In Oakland County, there's 100,000 septic systems. Approximately 4,000 every year obtain permits, 4% to repair their system. And with all due respect to some of the other commissioners here who don't live on septic tanks, I'm not sure this part of it is totally well thought out. And I can tell you for a fact that septic systems will let you know when they have a problem, because your plumbing will not work.
Okay, Commissioner Hoffman, let me just do some formalities here. So move the amendment that was distributed to everybody.
Yes.
Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, seconded by Commissioner Spiz. Commissioner Hoffman, if there's more
thank
you'd
you.
like to speak to the amendment.
And, you know, I think the Dalai Lama said it the best. Our sole purpose in life, and this should be especially for elected and appointed officials, our sole purpose in life should be to help others, and if you can't help them, don't hurt them. This legislation would absolutely hurt a lot of people in Oakland County. It would require inspections when they're not needed. It's like a solution looking for a problem. And I just think that it's not good public policy to make the situation worse than it is. It's like punishing every kid in the class because one kid acts up. You know, septic systems, if they're well maintained, they'll last virtually forever. But to require somebody who doesn't have a problem with their system to have a mandatory inspection. And then the other unintended consequence is, if you have 100,000 septic systems in Oakland County, you're not going to inspect 100,000 of them every year. You're going to have to hire staff. You're going to have to do 10,000 a year. There's going to be a fee. And I have to honestly tell you, people on septic systems are going to be livid if they were required to do this. It's trying to fix a problem that does not exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Any Commissioner Lubes on the amendment?
After my election last year, one of the first few phone calls I received from constituents were not in my district. They were, in fact, from districts in northern Oakland County requesting that I review the septic tank situation and move forward, urging the state to adopt a septic code. I don't have a septic tank at my home, so it was a learning lesson. And in our Healthy Community Committee, we brought in people from Clean Water, from the real estate companies, the Oakland County Health Department, and moved forward to address urging the state of Michigan to have a statewide septic code. We're the state in the United States that does not. And I feel we have a greater responsibility in Michigan. We have 20% of the world's fresh water. It's our job to protect that. Oakland County has more inland lakes than any other county. So not only do we need to protect the environment, we need to keep our neighbors safe and the individual homeowners safe. This moving forward with the septic tank is a result from people who live with septic tanks and have neighbors who have septic tanks that are greatly interested and in favor of this resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner Lubes. Anybody else wants to speak to it? Commissioner Hoffman for a second time.
I just want to point out, I'm not opposed to a statewide code. I'm against mandatory inspections. The Oakland County Health Department is against mandatory inspections also. A few years ago, before some of you were here, we had a committee that met for these very same reasons, and the conclusion we came up with is more education. But again, those people who live on septic tanks, it'd be like me coming to your community and say, you know what, every so many years you should have a mandatory inspection of your sewer system in your house, even though you know it's working, but you're going to pay a fee and we're going to hire all these bureaucrats to come and inspect it. It's the same thing. It's not necessary. I can just tell you from experience.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. I'm speak to this amendment. I'm not going to be supporting this amendment. I have to disagree with the sponsor. I do believe it's our responsibility. I believe that it's disappointing that Michigan's the only state without a statewide standard and how we deal with this. We have some counties that do have inspections. We have some that don't. We have some that do it at point of sale. We have some that are looking more broadly. A uniform standard is what I believe necessary to ensure we protect our environment and most importantly protect our water. And as stated earlier, that we do have more septic tanks in Oakland County than any other county in the state of Michigan. With that, we also know that the failure rate of these around the state, based on failure rate data that the state has produced, is pretty significant. And the analogy that was used is, why are we trying to set up a standard that requires inspections to make sure that people are doing all the maintenance and the work they're supposed to do? One bad apple in this scenario can yield pollution of our lakes, like pollution of our water systems. And so we're not the lawmakers in Lansing that would be ultimately tasked with developing something. But what I would say is when you can get the environmental community together, the realtor community together, coming together to try to figure out how to address this and can come together with a product that works, it probably lays an appropriate standard so that we can do right and support our community. I was on the committee that was actually advocated for the creation of the committee that looked at this issue. I would have to disagree that that was not the conclusion. That was just education. Education is a huge part of it. That being said, we still do have failure, and when failure happens, it leads to pollution in the local community. So I support the resolution as it came out of committee, and I will not be voting for the amendment. Commissioner Quarles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This resolution was discussed fully in committee, and one of the things that was added to our report is to make sure that there is an opportunity for families who could not support or could not pay for the inspection, that they would get a grant or a low-interest loan available by the state. So there are opportunities and options that homeowners can take. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gidgel.
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. So I appreciate Commissioner Quarles' comment, but I just received a second amendment that states the same type of thing around funding. So are we going to address that as a second amendment to this resolution? Okay.
Correct.
So
yes, I think Commissioner Jackson has an amendment after we.
Okay, so we have Hoffman's amendment, and then that item that was just brought up will come in a second amendment. Okay, then if I may, Mr. Chair, on the Hoffman amendment, I would just say that I do recall that study group. I think there was a lot of good work that was done, but in the end, if I recall, my impression of the synopsis is that it is a solution looking for a problem, that the failure rates and the other stats that were originally quoted weren't necessarily reflective of what was occurring in Oakland County. And then I do recall being contacted by a number of realtors talking about the consternation and bureaucracy it would create in the sale process of a home if we now mandated that a septic inspection was required before a deed could be transferred. And so it's a complicated issue, and in my opinion, I'm not in favor of mandating a solution. So I'll be voting no on the original resolution if it's not amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the Commissioner Taub?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Commissioner Gingell. However, I really don't like forcing people to have this mandate. However, when I was up north a few weeks ago, listening to the radio, and this is why I will support the resolution, not the, and Bob's amendment as well, but I heard on the radio that they wanted, the announcer wanted families who had purchased pumpkins at a particular farm between certain hours on a Saturday to please return them to the farm and or throw them out. They could get their funds, their money back if they did return them, because these pumpkins were picked in a field that was a septic field, and they were grown there. Now, my thoughts coming from my background were just, I was just overwhelmed because the fact that, and they didn't say whether they were pumpkins for Halloween or whether they were pie pumpkins, but the thought of this is something that somehow or other, we have to figure out that this should not be happening in our state. So some
Thank
kind
you.
of inspection, I think, is needed. Maybe not as stringent as this, but something. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tauber. I think it's important to realize the resolution is a recommendation to the state to adopt a statewide standard. We're not adopting the standard here today. On the amendment, any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the amendment.
Yes, on the Hoffman Amendment, Commissioners Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson. Kokendorfer.
Yes.
Kowal. Kuhn.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Lubes.
No.
Markham.
No.
McGilvray.
No.
Middleton. Miller.
No.
Nelson. Powell.
No.
Quarles.
No.
Spiz.
Yes.
Taub.
Yes.
Whitebird. Woodward.
No.
Zach.
No.
Gershenson.
No.
Gingell. Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, 11 nays.
An insufficient number voting for the amendment fails. I believe we have another amendment that's been distributed to everybody. Commissioner Jackson, do you wish to offer the amendment? So, all right. Oh, wait, sorry. So moved by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Turn your mic on. Commissioner Jackson.
I'm so sorry, thank you. I do see a need for this resolution, a need for inspections being attached to it as it is written. The issue that I had is because of some concerns coming out of my community in relation directly to this topic. And as Commissioner Quarles mentioned, we just need opportunities for our homeowners not to be harmed as best as possible within this process. And that's why I'm offering this amendment, adding language that any low-interest programs and grant programs for individual homeowners should be flexible and not mandate the attachment of liens restricting transfer of property at point of sale.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Any further discussion on that matter? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the Jackson Amendment, Commissioners Jackson.
Yes.
Kokendorfer.
No.
Kowal. Kuhn.
Yes.
Long.
No.
Lubes.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
McGilvray.
Yes.
Middleton. Miller.
Yes.
Nelson. Powell.
Yes.
Quarles.
Yes.
Spiz.
Yes.
Taub.
Yes.
Whitebird. Woodward.
Yes.
Zach. Gershenson.
Yes.
Gingell. Hoffman.
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 15 yeas and 6 nays.
A sufficient number voted in the affirmative, the amendment is adopted. Brings us to the original amendment. Any further discussion? Brings us to the original resolution. Any further discussion on the resolution? That's a lot of shoons. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the resolution, Commissioners Kokendorfer.
No.
I'm sorry. No. Kowal. Kuhn.
No.
Long.
No.
Lubes.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
McGilvray.
Yes.
Middleton. Miller.
Yes.
Nelson. Powell.
Yes.
Quarles.
Yes.
Spiz.
No.
Taub.
Yes.
Whitebird.
No.
Woodward.
Yes.
Zach.
Yes.
Gershenson.
Yes.
Gingell. Hoffman.
No.
Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas and 9 nays.
A sufficient number voted in the affirmative, the resolution is adopted. Commissioner Quarles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My second item, Mr. Chair, is the amendment to the Articles of Incorporations for Oakland County Art Institute Authority. Mr. Chair, I move recommendation and adoption of the foregoing resolution.
So first moved by Commissioner Quarles, seconded by Commissioner Jackson to accept the report from the committee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The report is accepted, and now moved by Commissioner Quarles, seconded by Commissioner Jackson, to adopt the amendments, articles to the incorporation for the Art Authority. Any discussion on this matter? Where are the amendments? Where are they at?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just have a
Commissioner
question,
Gill.
if I could, point of
Yep.
order. So this particular item, can you explain exactly, is this changing the language in the Articles of Incorporation to allow or to require any ballot question to come before the Board of Commissioners, before the Arts Authority puts it on the ballot?
Correct.
Okay,
The amendment that's being adopted is the exact language that we have in the Zoo Authority.
Right, so Mr. Chair, if I may. So earlier today in the Republican caucus, we were discussing this and we were asking if there would be time for us to evaluate this in relation to the next step, which is then the requirement for this question or the request for this question be placed on the March ballot. And I know we were having discussion around it, so are we going to have the opportunity to develop questions and ask questions, or are we taking action on this today?
So this resolution deals only with the Articles of Incorporation, not the action of placing the question on the ballot. So we can take, any questions dealing with the articles?
Yep.
Yes, we can talk about this right now. Commissioner Gill.
So if I may, so the question before us is, do we want to change the articles or not? If we
Correct.
change them, it gives us the ability to vote on putting it on the ballot. If we don't change it, it continues as it was originally constructed, right? Right.
Correct.
So-
And that would mean that the Art Authority could place a question on the ballot without any board input.
Right. So, I guess I would, my intention is to move to postpone this because I'd like to tie the two together. I think there was some discussion in the Republican caucus to say, do we need to change these articles? Do we need to institute the Board of Commissioners as part of this process? And so my understanding was that these two were coupled together and that we were going to address them together, by November 20th. So maybe I misunderstood.
Right. So a clarification from the process. So this deals with only amending the articles, placing the other question on the ballot, and the action, the resolution, which I'll be introducing. I'll make a recommendation. It'll go through the normal committee process. That question will come forward. This question, this issue, is just about dealing with the articles. So we will take up the issue of the board taking action at our next meeting, hopefully. This deals exclusively with the articles. Should we not adopt these articles, the Art Authority could meet this week and place the question on the ballot without any input from this board.
If I can for a
Commissioner-
second time?
Yes.
So if we vote on this today, and we vote that yes, we want to change these articles, then we will be required to vote on allowing the ballot language to go forward or not. That's the result
Correct.
of what's going to happen if we take some action here. And my understanding is the way that we have it today, where the Art Authority, who we appoint and designate, they have the sole voice, and I believe that's consistent in Wayne and Oakland County. Wayne and Macomb County. So the way our authority operates today is consistent. So I guess my issue is, to be transparent, is I'm not certain I want to change what exists today. And so that's why I want to couple the two together, because by taking this step today, they are tied together. They're not independent.
Okay. Any further discussion on the resolution?
On the amendment. It's on the amendment, right?
Well, we have the amendment here. So does someone want to offer this amendment? That's Commissioner Quarles? So Commissioner Quarles moves the amendment. Is there seconded by Commissioner McGilvery? This is the amendment. There are some technical aspects here after some house cleaning and Corporation Council looked at.
May I add, Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
Commissioner Quarles.
Corporate Council reviewed the amendments, and in their review, there were some language that they felt would be easier and better explained if they went through. We'll find that much of the amendments strike out any conflict or any confusion, with the intent of moving these amendments so that it will read smoother and give better understanding to what we're working on today.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Doesn't substantively change anything, it's just the technical stuff. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the amendment, only on the amendment.
On the Quarles Amendment. Commissioners Kowal?
Yes.
Kuhn?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Lubes?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
McGilvray?
Yes.
Middleton? Miller?
Yes.
Nelson? Powell?
Yes.
Quarles?
Yes.
Spiz?
Yes.
Taub?
Yes.
Wipert?
Yes.
Woodward?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Gershenson?
Yes.
Gingell?
Yes.
Hoffman? Jackson?
Yes.
Kokendorfer? Mr. Chair, you have 21 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Now, with sufficient number voting in the affirmative, the amendment is adopted. Back to the resolution as presented. Any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing as amended. Is there, seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the resolution, Commissioners Kuhn?
Yes.
Long? Lubes?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
McGilvray?
Yes.
Middleton? Miller?
Yes.
Nelson? Powell?
Yes.
Quarles?
Yes.
Spiz?
Yes.
Taub?
Yes.
Wipert?
Yes.
Woodward?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Gershenson?
Yes.
Gingell?
Yes.
Hoffman? Jackson?
Yes.
Kokendorfer?
Yes.
Kowal? Yes. Mr. Chair, you have 21 yeas, 0 nays.
Sufficient number voting in the affirmative, the resolution is adopted. Commissioner Quarles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is the appointment of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for Oakland County Board of Commission. The Legislative Affairs and Government Operation Committee, having reviewed the expiration of the appointment of the Michigan Department of Human Services, Oakland County DHS Agency Board, recommends the reappointment of Grenade Dudley White for a 3-year term expiring October the 31st, 2022.
The appointment moved by Commissioner Quarles, seconded by Commissioner McGilvray. Is there a report first? Yeah, I just read. Okay, so first, moved by Quarles, seconded by McGilvray to adopt the report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The report's adopted. The appointment is moved by Commissioner Quarles, seconded by Commissioner McGilvray. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the appointment, Commissioners Long? Yes. Lubes?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
McGilvray?
Yes.
Middleton?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Nelson? Yes. Powell?
Yes.
Quarles?
Yes.
Spiz?
Yes.
Taub?
Yes.
Wipert?
Yes.
Woodward?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Gershenson?
Yes.
Gingell?
Yes.
Hoffman? Jackson?
Yes.
Kokendorfer?
Yes.
Kowal? Yes. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 21 yeas, 0 nays.
Sufficient number voting in the affirmative. The appointment is approved. Commissioner Quarles?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Quarles, the hardest working commissioner today. There is no regular agenda items under the Public Safety and Social Justice Committee. Those were dealt with in the consent agenda. Brings us to reports of special committees where there are none. Special order of business. Commissioner Taub?
I'm going to postpone till the next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Taub gives notice to postpone to the next meeting. Moves to unfinished business. There is none. New and miscellaneous business. We have a presentation that we're going to conclude at the end, but of all the resolutions that we're going to do, we'll do those first, and then we will have the compensation and classification study project to have a full understanding of the compensation study for commissioners who are interested in remaining. Commissioner Zach.
I have a miscellaneous resolution declaring November 2019 as Homelessness Awareness Month in Oakland County, and I move the resolution.
Moved by Commissioner Zach to suspend the rules, seconded by Commissioner Hoffman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules are suspended. Commissioner Zach.
Now I move the resolution.
Moved by Commissioner Zach, seconded by Commissioner Hoffman. Madam Clerk, any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the resolution declaring November 2019 as Homelessness Awareness Month in Oakland County, Commissioners Lubes?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
McGilvray?
Yes.
Middleton? Miller? Nelson? Powell? Quarles? Spiz?
Yes.
Taub? Whitebert?
Yes.
Woodward?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Gershenson? Gingell? Hoffman? Jackson?
Yes.
Kokendorfer?
Not here.
Kowal? Kuhn?
Yes.
Long? Okay. Mr. Chair, you have 19 yeas, 0 nays.
A sufficient number voting in the affirmative. The resolution is adopted. Commissioner Powell.
I'm here to only introduce miscellaneous resolution regarding the conditional approval of project funding for redevelopment of affordable housing in the city of Pontiac located at the Carriage Circle project, and I'm just here to refer to finance.
Referred without objection.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good
I'd
morning.
like to introduce a miscellaneous resolution acknowledging climate emergency and creating an energy and environment infrastructure plan here in Oakland County, and I'd like to refer it to healthy communities and healthy environment.
Referred without objection.
Thank you.
Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got miscellaneous resolution supporting the reinstatement of funding in the state budget for the Going Pro Talent funding under the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. Refer that to Lago.
Referred without objection.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to hand the gavel over to our Vice Chair. Speed things up. I'm just going to do it from here.
There.
Your turn. Thank you. I'm going to introduce a resolution authorizing the Oakland County Art Institute Authority millage question to be placed on the March 20th, 2020 election ballot and have it referred to the Legislative Affairs and Operating Committee. All right. Are there any other resolutions or new business to come before the board? Seeing none, I would like to bring up April Lynch. April? We're ready. We're going to transition right into it. Oh, okay. We're good. All right. Do people want to take a break? Well, let's move. Okay, let's move along. Yeah, okay, so this, I'm talking to Deputy Executive April Lynch, who's been tasked by helping move forward our compensation and classification study project that's been going on for some years. There's a recognition of not a lot of conversation by this board to fully understand it. So April has graciously arranged for the consultant we brought on to help us move through this process, to give an overview of everything. I believe there's a report that was sent out to everybody. This is an opportunity to start the conversation and then maybe shed some light on what we kind of envision what we're going to try to do to wrap this issue up by the end of the year. So, April, the floor is yours.
We'll need some help getting that up on the board.
We're turning it, yep, we're going to get it.
Okay, awesome. I just want to say thank you very much for sticking around to hear what we hope is a start of a conclusion regarding the compensation study that started about 2 years ago. I'm going to be introducing Russell over here from the Management Advisory Consulting Group. I think it's actually Management Advisory Group. All right, I always want to throw something else in there. But before we get started, I just wanted to kind of offer where I am with this whole process. So as you know, I've only been here about 6 weeks, and I wanted to have some time to kind of go over the data with Mr. Russell as well as our team, and kind of go through where we are with everything. And so what you have here today is actually a summary of the process that took place to provide some of this data. You'll see a summary in your packet of where folks ended up within the compensation study, and I'm not going to talk too much about that. I'm going to let Russell do that. But I just want to offer a couple observations before he comes to the podium. The first observation is I want to let everybody know that compensation studies in general are a very emotional time for employees and for an organization, while at the same time very scientific. So already emotions are high when this process happens, and given the fact that this has taken over 2 years, emotions are very high and very frustrated as we go through this process. So I want to acknowledge that I do recognize that. And we're working through all of that on a case-by-case basis. The other thing I want to acknowledge is that what you have in front of you is for all of those that are in merit. There was also some study work has been done on the appointeds as well. I don't have that information in here yet because I'm working through that data as we speak, and hope to have that for you guys as we move forward in the process. So what we're hoping, I'll wait a second.
Only we had Apple TV.
Unplug it, plug it back in.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So I'll finish with my last comment. So what we're hoping to do today is provide a work session for the Board of Commissioners, as well as over the next all day today and tomorrow. Russell will be here meeting. We have about, I think, 8 town halls set up for all of our employees as well to come and ask questions. The intention is that assuming, not assuming, I guess I shouldn't say that, but just kind of as how today goes, that our goal is to bring this back in front of LAGO and Finance and the BOC for formal approval in December. However, you know, we can slow that down or do whatever we need to do to make sure that everybody is comfortable before we move that forward here at the BOC. So that is the intention. That doesn't mean that's etched in stone, and if more questions come up, we can go through all of that as well. So this is a very high-level overview of where we are with the study, and kind of a placeholder for us to start moving this process forward as it relates to approving this process. So I'm going to let Russell talk so that you guys can get out of here. Feel free to ask any questions. If after today you think about it, you have more questions, please reach out to me, and I will be happy to help move this along. Thank you.
Thank you, April. Good morning.
In the interest of time, I won't waste a lot of time. I'm going to jump right into it. But just a couple of quick comments before I get started. First of all, let me say thanks for the opportunity to come up and share with you the results of a project that initially started in terms of conversations in the fall of 2017, and actual work and communication and data analysis actually took place in January of 2018. The HR department has done a really good job of working with my team to make sure we had access to employees, access to existing information, and responding to questions that came up as a part of this process. I've been doing this for about 20 years. I'm a former HR director, Air Force officer, assistant city manager, and this is probably my 180th compensation study. I've done them for cities, counties, school districts, universities around the country. I can share with you that this process never makes everybody happy, and it's not designed to give everybody pay raises. This process is designed to assess where the organization is relative to the marketplace and compensation, look at the jobs within the organization based on the duties and responsibilities the employees have to make sure that their compensation reflects the market trend with respect to valuing those positions at a given point in time. Labor is a commodity driven by the same principles of supply and demand, just like gasoline and orange juice. And so one of the things we share with the employees at the very beginning, we made no promises or commitments in terms of pay raises for everyone. We did say that we felt that there would be pockets of adjustments throughout the organization. And so with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to talk just briefly about the Firm Management Advisory Group, the process and methodology that we used to put the study together, and then I'm going to talk to you about the results, what our findings show with respect to where the county falls in the region with respect to compensation. And just so that you know, this aspect of the study is looking at direct compensation, your pay. It does not look at, in this presentation, we're not talking about the benefits, which are considered indirect compensation. So we're talking strictly about pay in this presentation. The major goals associated with the project, I've outlined there for you, is to look at all the positions that were subject to the study. As April said, it did include the appointed and elected, and that information will be forthcoming after April finishes her review of that data. We looked at comparable labor markets in the region. We actually came up with a list of organizations, public sector organizations, that we thought Oakland County needs to compete with as it relates to pay. And then we looked also in the private sector where we could match up jobs by going through the Federal Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics to capture information with respect to what is being paid for comparable private sector jobs in the region. The essence of the study is to capture job information from the employees, and in order to do that, we had the employees complete an online questionnaire that asked them specifically to identify the essential tasks associated with their positions, the requirements such as education, experience, certifications, or licensure, other working conditions that they might be exposed to as they perform those duties and responsibilities. And all that information was taken in consideration as we began to build the internal relationships of the jobs within the organization. The ultimate goal was to develop a competitive pay structure for the organization. And when I say competitive, I do not mean you have to be at the top end of the spectrum. If we looked at it from a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being an organization that is the premier employer in the region based on direct compensation and indirect when we look at benefits. Sustainability says you probably can't indefinitely stay at the 10 level for fiscal reasons. You certainly can't survive and provide quality service at the 1 level, but to be competitive, you need to be somewhere around that 6, 7, or maybe 8 on that spectrum of 1 to 10, and that is how we define competitiveness. This process did not look to mimic or copy the pay structure from any one organization out there. We looked at the data as a composite and factored that into our analysis, which I'll get a little more in detail as I go through. We also looked at policies and procedures. No matter how well the compensation system is designed and put together, it's only as effective as the policies from an administrative standpoint that support it, making sure that policies are consistent with respect to hiring, determining hiring rates of pay, promotion, demotions, and transfers, making sure that all the jobs and the employees in those respective jobs are all treated the same, and also consistent with your merit rules that you have here in the county. The scope of the project included 3,658 positions or employees, and there were 671 different job titles as it relates to the project. And we made sure that there's a $15.01 minimum wage threshold for all positions within the county. So no job pays less than $15.01 per hour. This process was designed to capture the employee data, to ensure that we looked at the internal relationship, to establish the value of each individual position. And when I say internal relationship, the internal equity analysis is part of the two-step process to do a compensation study. The first step is to rank the jobs within the organization, identifying the most complex and descending order the least complex job within the organization. You don't have to be a consultant to figure out probably the most complex position is probably going to be either who's running the organization or one of the deputies, in this case, as a part of that process. You can probably easily ascertain what's going to be the least complex position in the organization. It's typically going to be probably a labor position or a lower level clerical position. But how all those other jobs shake out within the organization to be able to determine that job A is worth more than B and D is worth more than A and B is where this process has its merit. So this process is a product of statistics, and it's also a bit of an art form when someone like myself who actually sits down and looks at the relationships of the jobs and be able to rank them based on some definable and defensive criteria. And I'm going to share that criteria with you shortly. We also, as I said, wanted to make sure that we identified any shortcomings that were part of the existing plan, making sure that we didn't replicate those in the new study. Based on my understanding, the last time the organization did a major overhaul of its compensation system and actually put it in effect was 1986. So it's been over 30 years since you had a comprehensive study. Best practices generally indicate you should do this every 5 or 6 years. So it was long overdue. Once we put the study together, we ran multiple implementation options to help the county decide which was the most affordable and which option would put or position the county in the best position going forward to ultimately be an employer of choice. And we also will be providing the software and training to the HR department, so as new positions are created or duties change for existing positions, they can be reevaluated using the same process and criteria we use to complete the overall study. What we were not tasked with doing, or what this project was not designed to look at, we did not look at staffing in any way, shape, or form. We did not make any recommendations to restructure or reorganize departments. We didn't make any assessments of performance or capabilities of any of the employees. And as I previously said, we did make any guarantees as it relates to pay, and we did not make any recommendations to reduce anyone's pay, even if we found they were over the top end of what the market was valuing for that given position. Won't spend a lot of time talking about the methodology, but it involved looking at job factors or the criteria that you see before you, and this was assessed for every job in the organization subject to the study. We looked at the levels of data that was associated with the position and how the employees utilized that data as a part of their daily routine. We looked at judgment and how they exercised judgment. We looked at their people responsibility, where they were acting as a director or a lead person or a frontline supervisor. We looked at the complexity of the work, asset responsibility, which could take the form of budgetary responsibility, purchase order, procurement approval, as well as being custodian of equipment and materials. We looked at the impact of their decision makings, education experience, not what the individual employee held personally, but what is considered the industry standard with respect to what's required for a given position within the organization. We identified and looked at different types of equipment, physical demands, looked at levels of communication, who the employees were communicating with, the purpose of that communication, any mathematical or statistical connotations associated with their position, unavoidable hazards, safety of others. All told, there are 14 different criteria that we looked at, And my job as a consultant is to go in and assign a difficulty rating that ranges from 1 to 10 in each one of those categories. And we have a patented process or matrix of statements that associate what's indicative of assigning a 1 or up to a 10 in each one of those 14 categories. And as we do that, the computer tabulates the score for each job, all 671 of them, and then it produces a list that shows the internal hierarchical relationship of the positions, the highest scoring position all the way down to the lowest scoring position. As I indicated, that is how we define complexity of the jobs within the organization. So just kind of in a graphical summary, we had meetings with HR, the department heads. We met with them up front to see what issues or concerns they had relative to retention and recruitment. And then we also came back and met with department head and management to show them the initial results that we came back with. We also gave them an opportunity to review that data and provide commentary, and we went back and did a second review, and if it was found that we needed to recheck or make some adjustments based on the additional information and feedback we got from department heads and management, we did so accordingly. And you see we did the market survey, and I'll show you the organizations that we identified as peers. And so we had the internal and the external equity relationships, and that is how we ultimately came to producing the salary schedules and then coming up with the different implementation and costing models for the option ultimately that the county opted to go with. The targeted organizations or agencies that we reached out to see what they were paying for comparable jobs, City of Detroit, Genesee County, Kent County, Livingston County, State of Michigan, Macomb County, Oakland County Public Schools, Washtenaw County, and ONET is where we utilize the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics to find private sector data as a part of the process. The market results told us that if we look at the minimum or entry-level salaries, the county was on average about 1% below the market. If we looked at the midpoint or market average, the county was about 2.1% behind. And at the top end of the market with respect to job values, the county was about 4.2% behind the market. And so the county was in relatively good shape. We certainly, as we go around the country, we certainly have seen organizations that certainly are further behind the marketplace as it relates to these type of studies. Overall, the benefits package is exceptional and very competitive. Employee contributions for health insurance premiums are some of the lowest, if not the lowest in the region. And so strong benefits package combined with this process of making sure the salaries are elevated to be more competitive just really positions the county as an even stronger employer in the region. Continuing with some of the market results, some of the jobs that we identified, and this is just a sampling, that we found that the salaries were very competitive already prior to the study. Community correction specialist, senior public health sanitarian, application analyst, programmer, which is an IT, assistant prosecutor position, manager of facilities maintenance and operations, and the manager of animal control. Positions that were significantly behind the market, and when I say significant, they were greater than 5% behind the market. We're talking about construction inspectors, district court administrators, automobile mechanics, paralegals, and environmental planner 3. In terms of what we put together with respect to recommendations, we put together 2 plans from the same umbrella, if you will. We put together a part-time plan, which included 6 steps, and there was a range width of 17% from step 1 to step 6. And then we had the unified plan, which encompasses the vast majority of the employees here in the organization. That particular plan has 8 steps and a range width of 34% from step 1 to step 8. Is based on what we put together in our assessment of the market. We believe this structure establishes a competitive position overall for all the positions in the county, elevates the entry-level salaries to make them more competitive. As I said, there is not a job now that will pay less than $15.01 per hour. And it certainly brings the county further in line with the marketplace as we see it today. And you probably can't see this very well, but this is just a snapshot of a page from the part-time plan, which shows you the job titles, and it shows you the annual salaries in the form of a range from annual minimums up to maximum. And what we did was we broke that annual range up into step increments, and we assigned each employee to a pay grade based upon their job title. Then each pay grade has the pay range or steps associated with it. The first calculation is to make sure that current staff is at least to the step 1 of the new plan. If not, then we needed to calculate what it was going to take to get them up to that level. And then if they were already at step 1, we rounded their current base salary to the closest step in the new plan and placed them on that step. And I'm going to show you what those numbers look like here. On the part-time plan, there were 753 employees who were below the new step 1s or the minimums. To get them up to that level was 1.3 million roughly. And then to place everyone in their proper step, or on their proper step, all 982 people in the part-time plan, was an additional $93,095. So the change in payroll to implement the part-time plan is $1.3 million roughly. On the unified plan, which has a lot more people, there were 423 people below the step 1 or the minimums that we've come up with, and the cost there was $1.2 million. And then to place all those individuals in the unified plan on their proper step in the new plan, and that included 2,314 people, was roughly $2.6 million. So to implement the unified plan was 3.9, and then as I said, it was 1.3 for the part-time plan. So all told, we're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of $5+ million to implement the new compensation classification study. Put together a distribution pie chart. One of the myths that often I hear when we do these type of studies is some believe that this is a runaway attempt by management to increase or elevate their salaries. So I wanted to put that to rest. If you look and you see the green portion of that pie chart, that represents the administrative, professional, and technical jobs. Everything from the secretaries, clerks, to the plumbers, electricians, IT folks, as well as frontline supervisors. They get the bulk of that roughly $5 million. They get roughly 41% of that, if I'm not mistaken. If we look over to the left, we see the orange color. That's about 21%. That's supervisory and managerial. Office support is about 20%. And then we see down to the lower right, in purple, we see the executives, which only account for about 2% of that overall slice of the pie when we talk about the $5 million plus implementation costs. So you see the vast majority of the money is going to non-management level staff in the organization, which is not uncommon when you do this type of work. Typically, executive level, director level staff, when they're hired, usually they come in at pretty aggressive salaries because you want to pay a premium, or you have to pay a premium to get experienced executives to come into the organization. So usually when we come back behind and do a study, we find that their salaries, because they came in at a certain level that was very competitive, they usually don't see much of an adjustment as it relates to a study like this. Recommendations on policies. We made some recommendations with respect to reclassifications, promotions, transfers, demotions, temporary assignments, hiring, as well as we made some recommendations on how to handle those employees who ultimately max out within the pay structure. And all this was based on best practices, what we see in local governmental organizations around the country. We are hoping that in terms of transition, the organization will adopt the new pay plans, the classification levels for the individual employees, as well as the structure, and implement the new structure with an effective date sometime in February of 2020. I do need to address one thing that I've heard from some employees. One of the comments was, well, you know, Russell, you've been working at this for 2 years. Is the data still relevant? Because things can change within that time. And that's a valid question. Although we are 2 years after the start date with the results, we have been monitoring the labor market changes and movements during that entire time. And so we have adjusted the data twice to reflect changes in the labor market, from where we started back at the beginning of 2018 to where we are now, getting toward the tail end of 2019. So we've increased the data to reflect the lag time between start and implementation. Now, I'm certain that once the results are released, when you get to that point, there will always be an element of employees who feel like they're still underpaid or undervalued. One of the things I caution you to keep in mind, this is not an assessment of how valuable a person is to the organization. That needs to be addressed in their annual performance appraisal. What we have here is an assessment of the value of the job, regardless of who holds the job at a given point in time. All right? The other thing you need to be cognizant of, I'm sure there will be a rush by some to request under the merit rules a reclassification or re-examination of their job. I caution you to take those requests seriously, but prudently assess those requests. In order for a job to be reclassified to a higher grade, it involves a contextual change to the position. For example, if I, Russell, currently supervise no one, but tomorrow I now have 5 people under my supervision, that is a contextual change in my job. The reverse is true, where I, Russell, I type or prepare 20 memos a day, and starting next week, I have to produce 50 memos per day. That is not a contextual change. That is a performance issue, and I should be lauded for that when my annual performance review comes around. So it should take a lot of change to trigger the need to reclassify. But I can understand that. If I'm an employee, I have nothing to lose by saying I think my job is not accurate. It's undervalued. Why not? Roll the dice and see what happens. But I tell you, the moment you start to frivolously allow those type of requests to be granted, you erode the integrity of the plan, and it may seem like you're satisfying or pacifying some folks in the moment, but ultimately people will lose confidence in the study and the plan, and then you're going to have a whole set of other issues to deal with. And so I hope that you will scrutinize any requests for changes going forward. That, in a nutshell, is what I had for you. I've enjoyed working with the people of Oakland County. Other than the cold weather, it's a great place to be. Not so much for a Southerner. But if there are any questions or comments, I'll be certainly happy to entertain those. Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, why didn't we put Wayne County into our portfolio of, like-minded organizations?
It was on the initial list that we presented. County administration at that time decided that it wasn't a good comparable, and so they requested that we removed it, and we did so.
Okay, and I was on Human Resources Committee that approved this, and why did this take so much longer than we thought it would,
Yeah, it took a lot longer than I thought it would, too.
What happened?
I can tell you that at some point it was put on hold at the request of the former administration. That's all I can say.
Okay. And then finally, one of the feedbacks that I've heard is that we've extended out the pay, that for you to elevate in your pay grade, it's a longer period of time. We might have hired somebody in saying, oh, you can get to such and such at year 3, and now we've extended that out. How do we justify that? How do we explain that?
Two-edged sword. First of all, we found that the number of steps, I think there was 5, was too narrow. It was too few steps when we compared other organizations in the marketplace in the region. And as a result of that, a large number of people were topping out prematurely. And so we decided to extend that to 8 steps. Those that were topping out at 5 now have some more growth, and it gives everyone an opportunity to see their salary progress that plan on being here for a while.
But then how do we, okay, I hear what you're saying, so there's growth, but then retention of certain is also an issue if you're saying to a person, okay, you got to wait longer to max out, and maybe they'll walk sooner. How do we keep?
There is no data that supports that. That's a fallacy. 2 reasons. Number one, no one loses any money because they have 3 more steps to go before they reach the top end. They're still getting their pay raises, and the fact that the value of the job has changed over time is reflected in the additional number of steps. So there is no downside to increasing the number of steps. You're not losing any money, the money's being taken away from you, and you certainly, because your retirement in part is going to be based on your last few years of compensation, you have an opportunity to build that higher. So there's no downside to that. I'm not buying that argument.
Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Taub.
Thank you. Okay, so we gave you a 2%, I'm making you up, Russell. You got a 2% raise, but we reevaluated your job, and we found out that you're doing a whole lot more work and supervising 10 more people than what you originally signed up for. Okay, so obviously your pay scale is going to go up a few more bucks an hour. Is that what the intention is then of giving 2% raise, which everybody got across the board, plus the other $4 or $5 an hour?
Well, the 2% was actually a cost of living type.
Okay, I understand.
To maintain the purchasing power with respect for the individual employees. What this study is looking at is more looking at the value of the job on an annual basis. So you'll continue to do your across the board adjustments from a cost of living perspective. And that information should also be reflected in terms of adjusting the steps so that they continue to maintain their competitive nature. But yes, in a nutshell, you're right. We were looking to make sure that we captured and identified those individuals who had taken on more responsibility, whose jobs that changed, making sure that the value of those jobs are now reflected in
their pay scale.
Increased compensation.
Yeah, okay.
Based on those additional.
So they will essentially get, if their job compensation was too low by, I'm using this simplistically, $4, if this is voted on, I guess, in February as the plan may be. So that particular person will have their $2 raise plus the $4 raise for their job as an example.
It'll all be rolled into that.
That's, okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Any further questions? Any further questions? I mean, I guess I just want to make a comment here because the reason why we wanted to create some space to have an understanding of what this is frankly, the first update of any substance in over 2 years. This is incredibly complex. I think we want to also recognize some frustration by some of our departments, like why is this taking so long, and the expectation that employees have had, and a lot of people have been working on it, so we're trying to come to some sort of conclusion here. I mean, April's team, and April's going to have a longer conversation with the LEGO committee to go in a little more detail about this, but at some point and very soon, it's going to be in the board's hands to make a decision of, do we take and adopt this recommendation? Do we adopt it with some tweaks to this recommendation? Do we start over? I mean, these are the policy questions that we're going to be, I see your hand. I mean, but it's that we've got, I mean, there's a lot of questions that I think are going to happen over the next few weeks. I mean, our goal, we're going to be very clear of what we're doing next after we go through all of this. And I want to thank Russell, you, and April, I want to give you the floor if there's any other remarks that you want to share.
So a couple of things that I just want to acknowledge too as we go through this, that first and foremost, we'll make sure that this PowerPoint is online so that you can see it and so that our employees can follow back up with it. But I also want to acknowledge that this is just actually a piece of the pie. IBEW, what we just ratified with them, and hopefully they're going to go through ratification tonight. We actually went through all the unions as well to kind of relook at where they all are as well. So one of the things that Lynn in Fiscal Services is doing for us is giving a cost analysis of the whole big picture. Because what I don't want to do is have you narrowly look at this and then the unions come back with their upgrades as well. So she's working on that right now so you can have a bigger picture fiscally of the whole series of employees. So all of the unions have a wage reopener as well. So we're getting ready for all of that, and our compensation team has been doing a review of all of the union levels as well. So that will be the bigger picture so that in totality you understand the whole picture of all of this. The other thing is I don't want to discount is that part of the factoring, I think he showed you the factors that we're going to be using is the Merit Rule 2. So the goal is that, it's my understanding, Merit Rule 2 has been suspended while we did this process, which is that allowability for reclassifications and audit, or I think it's just reclassifications. The goal is once we move this process forward, that we will lift that merit rule as well. So if the board chooses to approve this classification plan and the new process, we'll lift Merit Rule 2 and start using the new process. If it ends up where this does not go anywhere and we maintain the current levels that we have, we'll still lift Merit Rule 2 and go with the current process that we have. So I just didn't want to lose that piece, recognizing that Merit Rule 2 has come up quite a bit as well. So the last thing I'm going to leave with, and I think I might have mentioned this at the beginning, is this is just a piece of the pie as we start really taking a look at modernizing our recruitment and retention strategies. We need to really take a look at doing some demographic checks on where we are. I think we're going to see a lot of retirements coming down, as well as just in general, the government. We've had the same experience in Ferndale and a lot of my peers that we've lost our competitive edge as it relates to we used to be, government in general used to be a great place to work because you had great pension, you had really unique benefits, you had a lot more stability. But we're now in the market with the private sector in general as it relates to benefits. We no longer have pensions, we no longer retiree health care. So we are really having to up our game as it relates to being competitive. So this is just one small piece of it. I think there's a lot of things that have come up about keeping quality employees. Again, you know, how we do that, whether it's through bonuses, merit, things of that nature. We need to take a look at all of that so that we can look at our retention and recruitment strategy. So over this next year, we'll be looking at all of that with the plan of action moving forward and how to address that. So this is, again, just one piece of it. We have town halls for the rest of today and tomorrow, and if there's any questions that come up or that you have that you want one-on-ones with me, I'd be happy to sit down with the board, but we can at least start the conversation in December with Bago and Finance.
Any last questions for April? Thank you both for making yourself available to come here to give a foundation of this process. And like I said, there's a lot of work to be done, knock on wood, over the next 6 weeks. But one way or another, we're going to land this plane. That's the last I got for new and miscellaneous business. Any announcements? Commissioner, Clerk Brown.
Thank you. New title. I just wanted to remind you, especially while you're all here, the canvass of the election is going on. We did have some close races, so, and I wanted to thank Commissioner Markham, who did come down to observe part of it. But I, again, always invite you to come down and see. You do appoint these people. They do work. There is work to be done. So for you to see what they actually do and to see this side of the process, come on down.
Great. Any further announcements? Seeing none, I'll adjourn to our November 20th, 2019 meeting at 7 p.m. or at call of the chair. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.